Hi everyone, this is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and we are about to go live. We're going to be talking to Dr. William Mount, and he is going to be on a landline because his computer is defunct. Been under attack, I guess, too much, and so we're going to do what we can here with the situation. So thank you for listening and for tuning in with us. And I'm going to see if I can get myself on screen.
You've got lots of videos to play.
Really?
You've got the cure for cancer, the cure for diabetes, how to reverse stroke damage. Those are all on YouTube, free to the public.
Okay, these are your videos, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So...
Well, we did the Fukushima thing, and something's been coming after me ever since.
Oh, yeah?
Fukushima? Yeah, this was not something they wanted out of the bag. Pardon me?
Just say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming on. You're going to be... When we're done with this show, there will be hope in your heart once again.
Okay.
Well, it looks hopeless out there. Everybody's panicked and scared and looking around, and when we're done with this program, most of you will say, oh my God, there is hope. And it's not, the light at the end of the tunnel is not another train. There actually is hope. And
okay.
It's some great hope.
Good.
And that's what I like to do is people seem to have no hope today, Carrie, and when they realize there's a simple cure for cancer, a simple cure for diabetes, all their diseases can be cured. So, well, not cured, you just knock them back into the next century. You never really cure anything. When they realize that it's so simple, and they don't need all this medical stuff, except, if you break a leg or crack your skull or something, then doesn't that give them hope?
Okay, well, let me just say that I'm going to read your bio, and then we can delve into all of this in some kind of order so that it makes sense to people. And Dr. Mount is certainly a psychic. I think you would agree to that, correct?
Well, I'm something. There's something in me that's able to go out into the ether and get information that nobody else has.
All right. And just so people know, if you know people that are looking for the broadcast, please do direct them to the live stream channel. We didn't have a lot of time to move over here from YouTube, but we did our best, and so that's what's happening. And I'm trying to see.
The information I give out is not. There seem to be two camps. One is the CIA, NSA. They're all corporations, and half of the people love me, and half of them hate me. And the ones that hate me don't want the information out, and the ones that love me want the information out. And so it's not surprising that you went down on YouTube.
Okay, so let me read what you wrote as a bio, and then I'm going to ask you to augment that, okay? So here we go. Dr. William Mount graduated from UC Berkeley in 1980 as a forester, spent 4 years in forestry, and the field dried up, and so he joined the Army as a private. Graduated from Officer Candidate School in 1986, left the Army, and then stayed in the Army Reserve. Graduated from Humboldt State with an MS in Natural Resources in 1990 after finding a cure for a tree disease. Disabled from the reserves in 1997 due to the effects of Lyme disease. He floated around for a while fighting veterans' battles. Got Agent Orange recognized and got Social Security disability for reservists and National Guardsmen injured in the Gulf War. Got into politics in November of 2006 when the two senior 1st Special Forces came to him and told him they were being deployed to kill President Bush on the 4th of April 2007 and nuke Salt Lake City, I guess, or Salt Lake 2 days later.
Salt Lake, correct.
That's a very short bio. Can you go into some more depth?
Well, my life is in dirt. I love soil. I've been playing with soil since I was 12 years old gardening. And I wanted to find, I remember a guy named Cesar Chavez, and he was a Mexican radicalist who knew Jimmy Carter's wife real well. And everybody in the fields were dying because they were using malathion and other pesticides on tomatoes. And I used some malathion, and it said safe. And I'm 12 years old, and I'm watching the TV, and I said, these Mexicans over there are dropping dead of cancer, and they're using malathion. I'm using malathion. Hey, I may not be the smartest 12-year-old on the block, but, you know, there's something wrong with this. I had to get a job, and I've had a job since I was 11. So I had to work and go to school, and we didn't have any food, so I went to work so I could do things like eat. And I was gardening, and I realized that there's something wrong. So I studied that for a long time and finally finished that project back in 1990, I guess. We came up with the cure for tree diseases. It was right after I graduated. I remember looking at the wall. I had 400 books. I threw them away, and then I focused on that. But the other side was I was in the Army, and I was in the reserves progressing on that line. But it all came to an end when I was injured and disabled in 97. And I didn't know what to do. I remember walking into Patty Murray's office with Training Manual 610, the Army Herbicide Manual, and I gave it to her aide in Seattle, Muriel Gibson. She called me up 2 weeks later. She says, Bill. I said, what, Muriel? She says, Patty, because Patty Murray was a new senator. She says, Patty walked into Bill Clinton's office, and he walked it down to the Supreme Court, and Agent Armstrong's has been recognized. I said, you're kidding. She says, no. And I thought, oh, my God, they're going to kill me, right? Here I am. The disabled soldiers, they're going to kill me. And the other thing I did, I was fighting a battle on Social Security, and we gave Social Security proof that the VA used 2,500 cases of contaminated needles and infected our soldiers purposely with a rash, something like jungle rot. And I used oregano oil finally to get rid of it. And the judge, and there are 3 directors of Social Security here in the Seattle area, and one of them came on my side. And we convinced the judge that I would win a case where all the veterans who came back from the Gulf infected with diseases would get disability. And when that happened, she says 150 people in Seattle got disability, and she said it went nationwide the next day. So she said that case took 100,000 deaths off the street. And I thought, wow, one guy can do something.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that one guy could actually do something. I mean, I'm just a nobody, right? You pick up the phone. I think I've talked with one senator, and that's Mr. Murkowski. And I read him the Riot Act because he said he couldn't do anything. And I said, you're a senator, you know, and I read him the Riot Act. But, I mean, you know, I haven't, and then...
Well, wait 1 second here. Now, you say you're an ex-Army captain, correct?
Well, if you look at Putin Dash, this one's for you. All my it's a video. All my identification is laid out, and I go through it with a camera.
Okay.
So you can actually see my ID card, all the passports.
And is that on your YouTube? Is that on your YouTube channel?
Yes, ma'am. Putin Dash, this one's for you. And everything's been exposed. I said, you know, the story's unbelievable. I got to say, it's incredible. So I'm just going to put everything out and let people decide. You know, here it is. You guys decide.
Okay, so why did one senator listen to you? Why do you think?
I don't know why I got through to Murkowski. I was talking on the phone, and somehow I got a hold of him, and I guess his daughter's a senator now. And I ended up talking to him, and he's the only guy I ever talked to in politics, I guess. And I said, the Forest Service shut down forestry 1 March 1990. It was 1980. It was called the Consent Decree by the Ninth Circuit Court. You couldn't be hired by the Forest Service as Category 460 forester until the Forest Service was 60% black and female foresters. Well, until 1980, there had been 2 female forestry graduates from UC Berkeley in 100 years. There just weren't any out there. So the whole Forest Service, everything tumbled in forestry 3 months before I graduated. And I remember talking to the head of the Forest Service because Rich Wilkins and I went to engineer officer basic class at Fort Belvoir, and his dad knew the head of the Forest Service who did this, and I asked him why he did it, and he said it was a sign of the times. So I had lunch with him, and he was very pleasant, but I don't like politicians. They don't tell the truth very often.
Okay, so at any rate, you did have a victory on the part of the veterans, right, in Agent Orange?
Well, and the Agent Orange, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me, Carrie. I mean, I'm a nobody, right? I'm not sticking out there. I'm just nothing. They could squash me, but they left me alone.
All right. And
And then
let me ask you,
I
if
would
your
help.
psychic
Pardon me?
ability, were you ever used in the military for your psychic ability?
No, I was in combat engineers and then in the infantry. In my final station, it was the 92nd Infantry Division, and they wanted me signed for weapons I couldn't find, and I said no, so I ended up going to the logistics officer of the U.S. Army, picked up the phone and said, what is going on? Well, it turned out that the Iran-Contra deal was the Steelicum Apartments trading drugs or weapons out of the 92nd Infantry Division, and I got stuck in there, and I wouldn't sign for the weapons that were missing, and I stood my ground. I stood my ground. Yeah, a couple shots were fired. I stood my ground. I said, no, you show me these weapons and I'll find for them. And the people involved in the tail end of the Iran-Contra, their military careers ended. They just died. They just stopped.
Okay.
And I refused to sign for, that's the only possible psychic use. And all the people who helped me got advanced and retired, and all the people who came against me, their careers came to an end.
Okay,
It's been that way my whole life. People who come against me are squashed. People who help me usually get advanced. One guy made a general before they threw him out. They have to do things. The Army has its own way of doing things. If you've been busted, they may promote you and then usher you out.
Yes, I have actually heard about that. Very interesting.
My job was, I didn't want to do any. This is not on my repertoire. Hey, politician, like to lie, Skull and Bones. I was invited to Yale to join all their whiz-bang stuff in Skull and Bones. I said, God, my soul belongs to the God. How can I give it over to you? That's insane.
Okay.
You wonder why I'm psychic. When the first Special Forces came to me, I'm like, in this court case, because I found out that the VA doesn't remove lumps in hands because they get grant money to study cancer. So they don't cure cancer, they get money to study cancer. And I thought that if you sold military records around the world, that was a violation of the Espionage Act. In the States Code, I think it's United States Code 18, Section 793, 794, and 796. So I got involved in a court case suing the VA to stop selling military records around the world. The guy who carries the nuclear football has his grandchildren's medical records sold around the world by the VA for grant money. And I said, no. And that's why the first Special Forces came to me, because they said, you're the only one with guts to fight these bastards. That's exactly what they said.
Okay, what do you mean the first Special Forces came to you? To do what?
Well, it was November 2006. I got on my knees and I said, okay, God, what's going on? I'm in court to stop the VA from selling military records around the world, which seems to be a good thing. And what do I do? And 2 weeks later, the first Special Forces came through an attorney and said, we're going to kill the president and put a nuke in Salt Lake so we can have another war because arms sales are flat and we're being deployed to do this. And I said, well, go tell your general. He said, the general's deploying us to do this. And I said, wait a minute, you guys are out of Fort Lewis. Yeah. Okay, we eat at the same places. Yeah. Why did you come pick me? He said, because you have the guts to fight him in court. He says, everyone else we went to didn't have the guts to stand up and do anything about it.
So what they were saying, just to get this straight, what you're saying, they were actually ratting on their higher ups and the plans?
Yeah, they were command sergeant majors of the first Special Forces. We got a big Special Forces out here. It's all fenced in. Can't even go on the property anymore. They're locked down. These guys are like total super soldier slaves. They do what their masters tell them to do.
Okay, but in this case, you're saying they come to your house, or where did they approach you?
They came to an attorney's place. And the problem is, what do you do? I mean, you're in court. You're a disabled vet. You have no contacts anymore. And the last set of contacts, you got fired for stealing weapons. You got a whole warehouse of stolen equipment. A whole warehouse. I mean, it got so bad I spray painted my truck blue with blue spray paint and went in there at 2 o'clock in the morning and did some dumpster diving to find some hand receipts so I could present them the next day to these guys. I mean, so I have no context. I burned the bridges when I busted these guys. But you don't steal on my watch. You don't lie to me. But they came forward and they said, you got guts to stand up to these guys. So we don't want to do what we're being employed to do. Most of the military does not want to kill American citizens.
True.
That's why they have to have homeland security. That's why they have to recruit foreigners. That's why they have to bring in Russian and Chinese troops. American soldiers don't want to kill Americans. We did not enlist in the service to kill Americans because they have a 5-shot 38 revolver in a drawer. I didn't sign on to kill American citizens because they have some extra dehydrated food in their cupboards. That's not why I joined the military. Right. I joined the military to protect and defend the Constitution to the best of my abilities and to protect the president and those around him. Now, if that means somebody's going to shoot him, I'm going to go ballistic. And I got 2 command sergeant majors in an attorney's office. If they're saying they're being deployed to kill the president, somebody's going to pay hell for that. You don't shoot the president on my watch. You don't steal and you don't lie. And you dang sure don't blow up cities.
Okay, so what did you... Wait.
And your general...
Okay, what did you do?
I didn't know what to do. So I was listening to Art Bell, and he was talking to a guy named Sean David Morton, who had a president who was... Pardon me?
Yeah, I know Sean. Okay.
And they were starting this startup country. And I said, oh, my God. He said he appointed me as ambassador, so I did a notice of withdrawal in the court case. I said, I'm withdrawing this court case. And if you don't withdraw this court case by the time I walk out of this courtroom, I'm going to tell the U.S. Marshals, you're allowing the VA to sell military records around the world, and you're guilty of espionage, punishable by 20 years in jail to death. And I wrote him a letter that said that. And the Marshals came by my front door, and they came through my gate, and they said, did you write this letter? Of course, I'm scared to death. You know, I swear they pulled out this badge about 3 feet in diameter. It scared me to death. So I opened my vest, I turned around, and I said, all I have on me are my keys. So I opened my pocket. And they said, did you write this letter? And there's another guy in the back with guns and a bulletproof vest. He looks like Mr. Macho who forgot to work out. Just fat. And I said, well, let's show me the letter. So I read the letter, and I said, yeah, I'm ratting the judge out to you because he's in violation of the Espionage Act. He's a damn spy. And read the letter. And the U.S. Marshal read the letter. He says, oh, my God, there's nothing wrong with this. I said, yeah, he's allowing the sales of military records around the world. And he said, oh, my God. And I said, you just stepped on my property. That's an act of war. And he said, oh, you did say you were an ambassador. I said, yes, I did. Well, I'm trying to play this because I'm shaking in my boots. This is scary. I didn't want to do any of this. And I said, by the way, and I told him what the First Special Forces told me. And I said, when my president gets done talking to your president, that you never notified him. Well, I got cussed out by his boss a year later. Apparently, Bill Kirkland, I have to get his card out. He was the head of the U.S. Marshals. And I was sitting in Oscar's bar. I don't drink, but people in bars have mushy brains, so I don't really read much in their brains. So I could sit in the bar and have iced tea. Bill Kirkland pulled out his card, and we're talking about how he was knighted and how he's such a great U.S. Marshal. And I told him my name, and he took a shot of beer, or whiskey, took a shot of beer, and he said, you blankety, blankety, blank. I'm the one who had to notify the president. And he started cussing me out.
Wow.
And this is an Oscar on camera. And, you know, that's how I found out he told the president. From then on, people watch my emails, evidence. So if I know something, the CIA owns AOL, I can send a message out, get a message out in less than 30 seconds when I know something, and it'll be stopped. But I remember talking to him, and anyway, back to Sean. I went down and met this guy who was starting up this country that was nothing but internet fraud. But I talked to him, and I said, if you get this passport, if you go to Ukraine, and I said, wow, I just came from the Ukraine. I got some adopted family back there. He says, if you get this passport, he says, it's going to protect you when you fight battles for the veterans. And I said, you're right. If I go over there and open this for a month or two, stay with him for 30 or 60 days, if I come back, I can keep fighting battles for veterans with diplomatic immunity. So I called the State Department and we talked. And so, not paid, I went over there, got the passport stamped. They were dumb enough to stamp it. And I stayed there for a couple months.
Okay, you stayed where? You stayed in this Melchizedek country that Sean talks about?
I don't know what Sean talks about. I stayed with some people in the Ukraine and we legitimized the country, which means we got somebody to stamp the passports. Because I had checked on a treaty with this fake country with Haiti, and I checked on a treaty with the Philippines, and they were both signed. So we had two treaties. All we needed to get unlimited loans from the Rothschilds and the IMF was somebody to have the passport stamp.
Okay, but isn't it called? You don't know about it then, but even though you're supposed to be its ambassador.
Well, later I went to Russia because I found out that there were some connections with Sean and some people in San Francisco and the money that disappeared that I gave Sean. And they apparently were printing up $750 million in fake bonds to sell Putin through Antonio Valadico of the Russian Church. And I had to go back to Russia. And Iran had 350 nukes. And we had to pull them out of Iran because the U.S. was planning to invade Iran. And if our soldiers got off their transports, 350 nukes is not something that I wanted them to face because these are my soldiers. And when I pulled the bars off, my responsibility for their lives began. It didn't end. And so I went to Russia. And but before that, I'm over in the Ukraine, and I fly to Vienna because I've never been anywhere in Europe. I mean, come on, I'm a forester. I like trees. So I'm sitting in Vienna, and somebody's Starbucks tray was collapsing, and this is May of 2007. I actually went over there to open the embassy. And I took a week off. The only thing an ambassador does is make another ambassador mad. It's a lazy, nothing job. But I had fun because I never been anywhere. So I'm in Vienna, and we got to talking, and this guy's with the Secret Service, and his girlfriend's with the Secret Service, and they set up things like when you fly in, you stay at the executive suite in Vienna, and you get an armored car and all that stuff, And then I told him my name, and he cussed me out. You son of a blankety blank. This is Secret Service on camera in Starbucks, May 2007, on camera. He says, you're the blankety blank who saved the president's life and stopped the city from getting nuked. How dare you interfere with international politics? And then he had about 300 swear words as he's screaming at me across this little courtyard in Vienna for saving the president's life. And I'm thinking, I'm living on an alien planet. This is not real. The Secret Service is cussing me out for saving George Bush's life. This is not real. Where do I step off? I couldn't believe he would do that. Can you?
Okay, but at this time, you weren't even in the service, were you?
No, I left in 97.
So what was your official title, if anything?
Well, I left as a retired captain.
Okay, so as a retired captain, you went over to do what exactly in Switzerland?
Well, first I wanted to fight because, first I wanted to get Agent Orange recognized. Then I got in a court battle because they weren't giving any of our soldiers disability.
Are you a lawyer?
Pardon me?
Are you a lawyer?
Nope, never taken a law class in my life.
Okay, so you go to court. How do you get embroiled in these court cases?
Well, you go to the county library and you go to Nexus Lexus Westcom, and you pay the 25 cents a page, and you can look up a lawsuit that's identical to one you're fighting that has won, and you duplicate that lawsuit. You take out, and I did this on a typewriter because I didn't have a computer yet. And I brought it in, and they said, the next time you submit something, you better have it on a computer because we will not accept anything with a typewriter anymore. So I said, okay. So I had to buy a computer to do this court case. I hadn't had a computer since I got my master's degree. I'm like, oh, God, I got to get a computer. Friggin'. And I had to get a printer. So here's this guy on a typewriter, royal typewriter, click, 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 typing up a court case in 2007 or 6, I think. And they didn't like that. And then they put out a local rule in the federal courts here in Tacoma that you have to have a computer to do it. I'm like, okay, I'll play your game. And I did it at Paupers, which means I'm broke. And I think it cost me $25 to file a federal lawsuit. And I said, look, here's my medical records at private corporations. This is a violation of United States Code 18. Stop it. That was the entire lawsuit. Stop it. It's the Espionage Act. It's punishable by 20 years to death. Stop the VA from selling my military records. Well, it's really easy. The U.S. attorneys have lied over 10,000 times in court, and the Supreme Court said if someone lies in court, their testimony is invalid. So I caught the U.S. attorney lying in court 3 times, and I presented the judge with the Supreme Court case and said their testimony is invalid. They need to either be in jail or locked up because that's what the Supreme Court says to do with a U.S. attorney who lies in court.
And he ruled in your favor.
No, he never ruled. I withdrew the case.
You did what?
I withdrew the case. The attorney.
Why? Why did you? I don't understand. Why would you go to all that trouble and then withdraw your case? Because I knew, under the Constitution, if I became an ambassador, the Supreme Court would have to hear my case. You see, so under the US
Constitution, and if I had that passport stamped, whether the country was legitimate or not, U.S. protocol states once an ambassador, always an ambassador. Since I had 2 valid treaties, I had a United Nations license, so they had signed the UN treaty to get me a United Nations license. All I needed to win that case was to become an ambassador, and then I could present it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could rule either the Espionage Act is valid or invalid.
Okay, did you do this?
Yes. And Ruth Jones of the Supreme Court said, I am not allowed to submit a case to the Supreme Court. You see, our Constitution changed in 1871 under the Organic Act. The only valid court now is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. We know the Supreme Court is a Supreme Court that rules on corporate things.
Uh-huh.
So the Supreme Court is a corporate court. It is there to defend the corporations connected to the United States corporation. So the Supreme Court, and I wrote each and every judge on the Supreme Court case, and they were all sent back to me by Ruth Jones. And she said, because I'm not a corporation, I do not have access to the Supreme Court. But I used my capital letters, but I used myself as an ambassador. And apparently an ambassador is not considered a corporation by the United States Supreme Court. So the United States Supreme Court no longer hears cases of international politics. I did not know that. That caught me by surprise.
Okay.
So I had no idea that the U.S. Supreme Court would not hear the case from an ambassador. But I knew if I went to... By the way, we, in all of this mess, after I got done with Russia, I asked their help to take all of the Dominion and Melchizedek Islands and give them back to the original countries. And Frank Stankovic of the United Nations in Ukraine was dating a black gal, and I was dating Lemlin, who's a black gal whose dad was the ambassador to England. I was trying to get her back with her husband. And they were friends, and we met, and Frank agreed with the Russians, and all the islands that the Dominion of Melchizedek had were now seized back by the Fiji Islands, Wakanda, and all the rest were then taken up, and the country died. So I killed the very country that I represented because I knew that they were involved in $750 million of internet fraud.
Oh, God. Okay. Look.
And they had a guy named Eugene in a garage in Moscow, and he was trying to get, and he said he had it because the chief of staff came over to Russia with me, and I had to pay for all this. And he said, we now have it so that we're going to seize $100 million of Putin's oil money and transfer it to Los Angeles. And I thought, you know, when I did this embassy in April and May in 2007, I came home and the FBI had put a person in my house and seized all my bank accounts. So I lived on the road for 6 months in my truck. And I investigated what the heck was going on with this Dominion of Melchizedek. I would drive up to a library with my laptop, and at 6 o'clock at night after they closed, I would use their internet thing on the you know how they have Wi-Fi? So I remember driving up to libraries and using their Wi-Fi and investigating. what was going on. It turned out that the FBI in Foster City worked with Stephen Foster, and they were at number 2 Foster Avenue in apartment number 2 in Foster City, working with him to seize the money from Russia to start this nuclear war. They were part of this whole thing. And I finally stayed with the president for about a week, and he finally revealed everything to me. And he says, "You have to go because I have to go do my weekly FBI meeting." And I said, "So what happened when I left? You worked with the FBI to get this embassy open and then have me homeless and disappear off the face of the earth." He said, "That's right." And I said, "So you and Sean did all this?" He says, "That's right." And I said, "Okay, I love Sean, but I don't think I'm going to talk to him anymore."
Okay, but why would they do that?
Money. Yeah, look, in case we haven't noticed, the FBI and CIA do not like human beings. They want this nuclear war. That's why Obama created ISIL and said on a video, "I created it and I fund it."
Sure.
And then he bombs it. He's a Hegelian dialect. He creates the terrorists, he bombs the terrorists, therefore we have to have a big military.
Yes.
The oil from Saudi Arabia, we don't pay for. A guy who owns a gas station said, "Surprise, I've been in the oil business all my life." Saudi oil is given to the United States. They give us weapons. It's called oil for peace. They then sell the oil to Mobil or Chevron. The United States Corporation makes a lot of money off of Saudi, 2 billion barrels a day or whatever they buy for $15 a barrel. Price hasn't changed in 20 years. But the speculative price has, but not the actual price they pay. So they're still paying $15 a barrel for oil out of Saudi Arabia and most other countries. So anyway,
okay.
I got that.
Now, I mean,
Russia and
you did okay. Well, wait. Slow down. So, in the end, let's just wrap this court case thing up. So, you tried to take it to the Supreme Court. It didn't go anywhere. Did this case, this selling of records by the VA, did it ever get settled?
No, I just got another notification that my medical records are in another corporate hands. Now, that may not sound important that my military records are in somebody else's hands, but when I was in Humboldt State, Bob Plank was one of my advisors. I had to have 3 advisors. He was the head of the geology department. There were 2 people in the department. It was pretty small. He was the secretary for the 6th Army. He did the reserves also. So he and I hit it right off. He was a high-ranking sergeant, and I was this young lieutenant at the time. And he went off to be the commanding general's full-time secretary because he says, "I like the Army better than teaching." And I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "I got some dirty gas masks, and I cleaned them all up, and they sent me to a couple of nuclear, biological, and chemical classes in the Army Reserve. And what I'll do is I'll just write you an SOP for nuclear, biological, and chemical stuff." And he says, "Cool." So I wrote first nuclear, biological, and chemical SOP for the U.S. Army. And then the 6th Army accepted it, and then so did the 1st and 2nd, and of course then they've written volumes on it. But in doing that, I learned where all the nuclear weapons were in this area, in this state, and I knew the entrance code to the 80th Ordinance, which is the nuclear weapons under the airfield of Fort Lewis. Now, if I know where the nuclear weapons are and the entrance code to these nuclear weapons, if I know how to make biological and chemical weapons, why would they sell my military records around the world?
Okay, it's very interesting. I mean, that's an interesting case. Obviously, it's still going on, is what you're saying.
Well, I thought after I submitted to the Supreme Court, I said, "Okay, I'm going to lose this. I can't get it through. I'm going to take it to the media. To hell with them. I'll just take it to the media.
Okay, did it go anywhere? Did it go anywhere in the media? Did they pick up on it?
Oh, did they pick up on it? 2.5 years on TV, my first TV show was Operation Devolution. You know, if you read Operation Devolution, and I found it by mistake. I was typing in evolution, and I ended up typing devolution by mistake. And here's the FEMA plan to operate the U.S. government underground with no surface population. It's on the internet, Operation Devolution.
Okay.
It's the operation of the U.S. government underground with no surface population. Signed by the president of FEMA, approved by the president. Now, that takes a little time to wrap your mind. Why would the U.S. government be fully operational underground without an above-ground population.
Why, indeed.
Yeah, obviously they don't want us alive, or they're expecting us to die off.
Well, it's one of their alternative or alternate futures. Okay, so
Operation Looking Glass, they can look into the future, but they can only look into the most probable future. So
right.
If we save the president's life, the future changes. If I say there's a nuke being delivered, 3 or 4 nukes being delivered to Ukraine, and one goes off north of Donetsk on the 8th of February, but they seize the one going to Stalingrad or Volgograd on the train, the third one heading to Murmansk, the guy runs from the train with a nuclear backpack, the fourth one, the fuse breaks. Now the future is even different. So the future they were looking at on 7th February is completely different than the future they're looking on in 8th February. And I'm afraid I have cost them an awful lot of time by changing the future.
By doing what? Revealing, because you told me you do this, and you basically trace the nuclear weapons through remote viewing, through, how are you doing this?
When I went to Russia, I took off one night, came back at 2 in the morning, and the whole hotel staff was standing up at attention waiting for me. There was a line of people. I'm like, stupid American, I got lost. I mean, I dodged the people following me. That was easy. And I thought, oh, my God, I'm going to meet with people who are important the next day. The whole hotel staff didn't go home. I mean, here's the 2 beautiful clerks that wanted me to marry and stay in Russia. And I'm like, they're standing at attention when I walk in at 2 in the morning. There's a lot of things that scare me, and that scared me. And so the next day I met with all these people, and Antonio Valadico was the head muckety-muck of St. Petersburg Church, the head patriarch. And I remember hugging him and telling him what his prayer to God was and what God's answer was to him. And I remember him crying in my arms. And there's a couple of organic things he passed on to me, which kind of scared me. And they made me a bishop because they knew kind of what I was doing, and they think only bishops can talk to the Holy Spirit. Okay, whatever. 2 days, they put the stuff on my face. I walked around St. Petersburg with mosquito bites because we forgot about the mosquitoes. And I couldn't breathe because they put this oil on me. I don't know what was in it, but it clogged my nostrils up. And I remember hugging him, and he's crying in my arms. And when I got back to the States, people would contact me, and they said, hey, the next nuke is going to be delivered on this date. And they come and they give me their card, and they disappear, and I never see them again. And I remember on TV one day, I ripped up all the cards. And 9 November 2009 is a good example. I said, they're going to throw it, Obama's going to throw a nuke at you on 9 November, and it was in What Does It Mean? And then it went off, and they shot it down on the way to Omaha, Nebraska. And I talked about that specifically on television, and they did, and I raised my hands, and I said, sun will break out in spots like my face. And within an hour, the sun broke out with sunspots, and it hasn't changed since. So I've done a lot of those things that are documentable on television or in print. But then one day I took all my cards and I just ripped them up. I said, I'm tired of this game. I said, you guys want to blow this country up? Blow it up. And I said, these are all my contacts. And I ripped them up and I threw them in the garbage can. I said, I don't want to know anymore. I want to go back to forestry. I'm moving to Montana. Y'all can go jump in a lake. Kill yourselves. I don't care. And then I started getting these horrible headaches, Carrie. Horrible headaches.
Okay.
And my wife will testify to this. If I turn on TV and I watch the Sci-Fi Channel for an hour, I don't know squat for 3 days. It shuts my brain down. Television shuts my brain down. No problem. So we don't have a TV, but I get these horrible headaches, and then I know things that were coming. And I've always been able to look at people and know what's wrong. Now I can look at someone and know what's wrong with them, like you. You've got a clip in your left hip. You've had a shoulder accident from a car accident that still sometimes hurts. And I won't go into any more detail, but
no, I haven't. I've never been in a car accident. So look,
that's what I'm reading. I'm reading something in your shoulder that was. Well,
I have an interesting shoulder, but it's not. I was born with it, so it's a birthmark.
It's a thump, and sometimes your shoulder hurts. But I'm reading. I don't know. Maybe it was a birth defect caused by an accident before you were born. I don't know.
It's my lab. I was mylabbed.
Pardon? I'm sorry, what?
I was mylabbed. I was a
My-
mylab, you know, in an underground base.
You were born in an underground base?
A hospital associated with underground base. Yeah, Moffett Field.
That's weird because in order for Oppenheimer to build his nuclear reactor on Princeton University, he would have to come and have dinner with my father or my grandfather because they were mayor, vice mayor for 20 years.
They were in what?
They were mayor and vice mayor of Princeton.
Of Princeton.
So in order to build
So you come from an Illuminati bloodline and you got an Illuminati family, right?
I have no idea. I don't think the mounts of the application are. I mean, I trace this back. I don't think there's any Illuminati. This is weird. Okay, if you look at Putin, this one's for you. They gave me all these accolades. They gave me all these passports. But I don't know if they just slipped through the cracks or what, because I don't see any Illuminati bloodline. And they gave me all these passports, and yet they've denied me the money, which means God has the right to destroy them now. And I petition God, whoever God is, whatever gives me the head. And
Okay.
I can't say.
Look, you're saying your father, your father. Are you saying your uncle? Who's president or what of Princeton?
Okay. My grandfather was mayor and vice mayor, and I think my father followed in his footsteps.
Okay.
And that means they had to deal with the School of Esoteric Studies, which is a lot of out-of-body experience people sitting around talking about how to bring in a guide spirit to out-of-body experience. I don't do out-of-body experience. And never have, probably never will. I don't know. I don't use drugs.
Okay, but why did they have to deal with Oppenheimer? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, if they were to build the School of Esoteric Studies, or they were to build a nuclear reactor under Princeton, because both Princeton and Berkeley have a nuclear reactor. And I've been to Berkeley. I graduated from Berkeley. My father graduated from Princeton. And in order to build that, they need a permit from the city of Princeton. And what my father and grandfather would do is they wouldn't do what most mobsters do. You know, give me a couple thousand and I'll give you the permit. No, if it was good, they'd speed the permit along. They never took any money from anybody. Because I remember sitting with this guy named Gambino, and I put a load in his cigar and it blew up. We all thought it was funny. And I shook up his beer and it blew up. And I was just a prankster. Had fun with him. They were like uncles to me. But my father would always say, I'm not taking any money for this. If it's good for Princeton, we're going to do it. And everything they came forward with was good for Princeton, and they did it. They never took money for it. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay, so you're saying... Go ahead. Yeah, what about Oppenheimer?
He would have had to come to our house and talk with us because nuclear reactors were brand new back in 1950s and 60s. And in order to put one on the Princeton campus, they would have had to come to our house and say, hey, I'd like to put a nuclear reactor on the Princeton campus.
Okay, and why? Okay, and why did they want to do that?
You know, that's a really good question. Why we have a reactor under Berkeley and why we have a reactor under Princeton? They said it's for the physics department, but maybe it's for the manufacturing of plutonium. I don't know. I never went to see these reactors. I just knew when I worked at Evans Hall as a student, I was standing on top of a nuclear reactor. And I knew when I went up to the 11th floor, I could throw paper airplanes.
Well, when there's a San Francisco earthquake, that's going to be interesting information to have.
Oh, they got a lot more than a nuclear reactor at Berkeley. They got the Lawrence Livermore lab with all kinds of underground labs there.
Yes.
They got an accelerator. In this country, the United Nations said that the universe is organized in bandwidths. So we vibrate, you and I carry at 85 megahertz, if we're healthy. 70 if we got a cold. The astral plane vibrates 100 times faster than us. So we're at 85 megahertz, the astral plane's at 8,500 megahertz. The next plane of light, they said, is 100 times faster than that. So they said that's the galactic plane that vibrates at 8,500 times 100. And then the celestial plane, so on and so forth. And everything has slowed down light. So we're trying to create here on Earth the astral plane and the galactic plane. We're playing with speeding up light, and we're playing with all kinds of things.
Okay, well, that's an interesting way of viewing
We're messing our environment up. We're trying to kill the people on the Earth because we're a hindrance to Lucifer. I mean, a couple of things the UN said. They said, we're fallen angels, and we want to get back to heaven, and we're going to use humanity to get us there, no matter what it takes. And then on Monday, they said, we're speeding up the process. We're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink of humanity to see if they can survive and come together. So they're going to throw every plague. They're going to throw everything at us that they can. So we go on, we say what they say, and we pray against it.
Okay, but what?
That's what they want.
Okay, why are you saying Monday? Why are you saying Monday? They said this.
Okay, about 3 years ago, I began to wonder, what is Lucifer? And I looked up Lucifer, and there was the Lucifer Trust. And the Lucifer Trust started a League of Nations, and then it's transported itself over to the United Nations. So here we have, and it had to rename itself the Lucas Trust. Well, it turns out the Lucas Trust, you can listen to their weekly broadcasts, monthly broadcasts. And they have seminars. Well, if you want to know what Lucifer's doing, listen to him, right? You want to know if he's going to start a war, listen to him. He tells you. And so then, because I helped them with their audio, because their audio is horrible, and I really want to know what Lucifer says, because I really know I want to know who he's going to try to kill next. So they invited me into some internal broadcasts, and one of the internal broadcasts was at noon on Monday. And you have to be invited into this. And I listened to them very carefully. And you have to understand their language. Just like lawyers have languages, doctors have languages. Lucifer has a language, an English language. And if you listen to it and understand it, basically the United Nations said they're going to throw everything and the kitchen sink of humanity. So we just did a story where in April of 2014, Legionnaires broke out in the Pittsburgh hospitals. But along with the Legionnaires, they also infected people with 5 new forms of tuberculosis. Now, in New York City, there are like 100 people with Legionnaire's disease, and they found the cooling towers for a plastic company and Verizon infected with Legionnaires, which means they were also infected with this airborne tuberculosis. So the Bronx now, in a few months, everybody will start to break out with coughs. So they're throwing the plague at us. They're throwing everything they can, economic collapse, ecological collapse, the plague,
okay, but
changing the food to make us sick, everything.
But so in essence, you listen to what the guy is saying, and then you believe him.
I listen to what they say, and I do a story on what they say, and then the next day, because I'm never going to be disrespectful to them, because they invited me in, and I'm not disrespectful. And then I say, pray that this doesn't happen. So you might have 15 or 20,000 people visualizing or praying that what they're doing will fail.
Okay, and that's your tactic.
Well, yeah, it's the only tactic I have. I mean, I can't blow them up. I can't shoot them all. So the only tactic we have is to gather as many people as we can to visualize and pray, whichever you want to choose, that whatever they're doing, whatever evil they're doing, fails.
Okay. All right.
And they say during Lucifer Trust, they say they want humanity to come together like this. So I'm actually doing what they want me to do. We're praying against them. Now, I had a guy named Doc Marquis. It's a God Thing Production 777. And he was one of the blood-sacrificing satanic priests who invited me in to join their cult, and I said no. And so he came against me along with the other 12 satanic priests. And that's why I had to stand my ground and call the head of logistics for the U.S. Army, because no one on Fort Lewis would help me because they were all involved in this cult. I refused to join. And he finally turned to God, and I said, Doc, because he called himself Doc Marquis. He left as a staff sergeant, or a low-level sergeant medic. And I said, Doc, what do I need to do to shut Lucifer down? He said, get 100 people praying against us. He said, so if I get 20,000 people praying against what Lucifer's going to do, I said, you are a human sacrificing blood, you stab the knife in the kids, the whole way. I said, what's going to happen when I get 20,000 people to pray against this stink pot? And he says, oh man, you'll shut him down. You'll shut him down yesterday. So after I talked to Doc Marquis, I thought, well, that's probably a pretty good strategy to pray against him. Because you're not going to win in the Supreme. I'm not going to win in the Supreme Court. I'm not going to win in the court of public opinion, but I will win in the spiritual level.
Okay. All right. Well, I certainly hope that's true. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right. So in terms of, you have a broadcast, I think it's rather recently, in which you're looking at the map of the United States, I believe it is, but it might be the rest of the world, and you're making some comments about what's going on around the country. Do you want to talk about some of that?
Oh, absolutely, Carrie. What the Naval Intelligence believes, and I got a briefing from someone in Naval Intelligence, and I'd already read other articles on it. What they believe.
Okay, now I want to wait. I'm sorry, but to interrupt you here, but you got a briefing from someone in Naval Intelligence. Why did they brief you?
Because they're a relative of mine.
All right, fair enough.
My brother spent 40 years in Naval Intel.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead.
And we used to argue. Well, I got to talk to the Secretary of Defense. Yeah, but I just made first lieutenant. Well, my briefing went to the Secretary of the Army. Yeah, well, he just awarded me retirement. I mean, we used to have these, and we would laugh about it. And then one day he called me and said, "Why do you know so much?" I said, "Because I listen to Art Bell." He says, "Oh my God, we don't even know that much."
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay.
Anyway, so
you got a briefing, and what happened?
They think that, and he's very high in the Mormon Church, so I can't be in a church. I mean, I walk in, I greet people, and they're going out. But you say, "Oh, it's from the devil." No, it's from God. It's a gift. I have a crystalline aura. I'm one of the 100 that have survived. The indigo aura all have autism, and the crystalline aura, they've all tried to kill it. But, he said, what we believe is going to happen is the dollar is going to crash. And he gave me some things that Naval Intelligence was told by the CIA, and we prayed against it, and these huge major things did not happen. But he said the dollar is going to crash. We're not exactly sure when. But we Mormons are storing up our food and water, and we all have a safe place to go to. And he says, there will be a nuclear strike, just like the Russians said on their website. We will have a nuclear strike. This is what we're going to do because U.S. Contingency Plan 8010-09 and later signed by Obama, -12, says we're going to strike Russia, China, a family of nations, North Korea, Syria, Iran, Russia, and China. We're going to destroy the family of nations at a particular time. So I showed that on TV. We exposed it on the internet. But Russia said, fine, we'll nuke you first. And they put out a nuclear plan. Naval Intelligence believes that since some of the people who went to China with the algorithms to break into the U.S. corporate computer because they found out the U.S. was selling military records around the world, i.e. their records. China, the Blue Army, which is south and west of Beijing, buried in the mountains, they took the algorithms in their old cell phones, downloaded them into the Chinese computers, and there's now 11 countries that have access to the U.S. corporate computers, and they have access to the CIA and every other corporation licensed with the United States. That's why China's been hacking us, because they have access to every computer connected to the United States and the Federal Reserve System. So Iran, China, Russia, Kazakhstan, and there's seven other nations that have complete access into our computing systems. So they're going to shut our computers down. They won't help put this together.
And when are they saying they're going to do this?
March, maybe.
March.
The economic collapse should start on the. Lindsey Williams says we're going to get hit by a meteor on the 24th of September. If we do, it was done by the U.S. And then the 25th of September, the Pope is supposed to address the UN and declare an Ecclesiastes, which means expect the chip. Do what I say.
Yeah, okay, but do you believe all that's going to happen in those dates?
Maybe, but we're praying against it, so, And then on the 20th of October, there's supposed to be the new world order dollar that Medvedev showed in 2008 is supposed to come out, and it's backed by gold.
Uh-huh.
And then
And do you believe that the slow down. Do you believe the Chinese elders are, you've heard of them, are really going to create something different than what the BRICS have in mind?
We confronted the ambassador for the Red Dragon family. And they've been running around saying, we have one followed by 30 zeros. We're the St. Germain Trust. We're the Marco Polo Trust. We got all these bajillions. And then we said, if you're going to fund a humanitarian project, why don't you fund 100,000 clinics where we give out the cure for cancer? You have 400 million people in China with cancer right now. You sacrificed 1/3 of your population to get economic freedom. 400 million. This is the Red Chinese. They sacrifice humans for money. And I said, if you want to do something, let's open 100,000 clinics to cure the people of cancer in China. And he said, well, give us a business plan, and if we can make money, we'll do it. So then the author confronted him again, and he said, we have 21 trillion to invest. Well, that's how much the banks have. It turned out that the Red Dragon family ambassador was merely the bankers' representatives. So I said, fine, you're going to lose your trillions. You'll either call me, apologize, and fund this, or God will strip you of your trillions. Gird your loins, because it'll happen in 72 hours. Well, remember when the Chinese market got hit and everybody panicked? That happened 2 days later. Fukushima happened 2 days after I told Japan it would roll. Chile's earthquake 9.0 happened 48 hours after I wanted the governments of Chile to call me, or their island, or they'll get hit hard for signing Mexico into the South American Union. This happens all the time. Russia had a 4.1 earthquake that lasted for 10 hours 2 days after I told them, girdle your loins, you're going to shake for a day. The earthquake lasted 10 hours.
Okay, but all that means is you're tapping into something that's already coming.
Or it's being created, or I'm tapping into something.
No, you'd have to, you'd have to have an ego that would, is gigantic to actually think that it's.
Terry, it's not me. It's not me.
It's not you. No, it's.
I don't even know where I set my phone down half the time. I can't even find my phone.
Well, no, I'm just saying that the logic would say that if you tap into a timeline and you're able to anticipate certain things, improbable realities, and you nail it, then it's going to appear. It's the same thing as saying you're jumping on that bandwagon. It's a train coming down a track. You can see it in the distance.
Either I know what's coming, or something's telling me what to say, and then
and putting you in the right position at the right time. Because you allow yourself.
I don't like this one bit.
Okay, but no, let's get back to my question, because you didn't quite answer it. So what are you saying? Are you aware of these individuals calling themselves the elders, the Chinese elders?
I know that there's a Red Dragon family. I'm not really familiar with the Chinese elders.
Okay. What about two camps in China? One that's creating the BRICS, and one that thinks they're going to do something even more altruistic. Let's say that's their claim.
Well, that's what the Red Dragon ambassador was saying. We're going to be altruistic.
Yeah.
We're going to fund all these big time projects.
Well, it sounds like a sales pitch to me.
Pardon me?
It sounds like it's a sales pitch. Propaganda.
Yeah, it was a sales pitch because the banking industry, we finally cornered them, and the Red Dragon ambassador admitted we have 21 trillion to invest, and that's exactly the amount they had in their bank accounts. So the Red Dragon ambassador was just here to find investment. Because China, their economy has tanked. They have an average of 250 times. Their debt load is incredible. They've been putting themselves out on a limb, and the market is ready to it's falling apart in China. And they have to do something.
Okay, are you aware of the ET? Are you aware of the ET alliances with the various governments, etc.?
Well, this is interesting. You should bring that up. China took over they took over the IMF. But they took over the IMF 2 weeks earlier, and they were negotiating with the IMF, and somebody by the name of Rothschild put a nuke in a submarine and was taking it to London while they were negotiating in London. And I asked the Chinese to block the submarine, and somebody contacted me and said, we used 2 Chinese submarines to block the Rothschilds in Halifax. They will not get the nuclear weapon. There was a missing nuclear weapon from Colorado they talked about, and I tracked that to Halifax into a Rothschild submarine. Chinese says, we got that. There's 2 of them. And the next day, it was a Sunday, the Chinese walked in, and they're kind of short, and they flipped them the bird sideways and said, Long Da Pu. They basically cut them out in Chinese and walked out. And the next day, Monday morning, there was this miraculous Chinese takeover of the IMF by 1 vote. Well, apparently, they would not have done this unless something in the heavens was there to protect them. And the United Nations said on their last conference that the war in the heavens is coming to an end, and the bad guys have lost, the Rothschilds have lost, and she said it's a matter of wrapping up these evil people. And I'm surprised that Lucifer Trust Fund actually said that, because Rothschild has been in bed with Lucifer forever.
Sure.
But, you know, he's probably a turncoat and a rat thing. But suddenly the Chinese felt confident enough to take over the world's financial system.
Right.
And I think it had something to do with exactly what you just said. I think it had something to do with their alliance in space, and so did the Lucifer Trust Fund think that it had to do with something with the alien alliance in space. If the Draconians are running the United States, and if they have their little Paul Gray clones, then they're in deep doo-doo because they just lost.
Well, I mean, they're certainly running, you know, the Rothschilds and Britain and that alliance as well. There's evidence from certain whistleblowers I have that the Iranians are dealing with a certain group of reptilians, and so are the Chinese.
So
but they're not necessarily the same groups.
What do you mean? Okay.
They're not the same races. In other words, some of them some of them fight with each other, and some of them are in the same, you know, they're working together.
I have a feeling that if I were a reptilian, I would be scared out of my boots because I've never seen an alien. I've never seen a spaceship except skycraft. I know that at Forrestal Research, and I've been to Forrestal Research, we have these flying saucers that, I mean, Bill Hurd is in charge of the SR-71. He was my boss for a couple of years. He was a full bird colonel. And he said, oh, shoot, we were circling the moon a lot back in the 60s. He said that's why they wore Apollo spacesuits. We have anti-gravity propulsion systems on the SR-71. So I showed U.S. patent for anti-gravity propulsion systems, and I ran and built a flying saucer a year later. They never should have stolen my money. I wouldn't have been on TV. What a nightmare they created for themselves.
Okay, when you say you're on TV, what do you mean you're on TV?
Channel 77 and Channel 33, Seattle Public Television.
Okay, public television.
2 to 4 appearances every week for 2.5 years, and then I walked away. I couldn't afford it anymore. And the public television has a lot of dope, and I've never used it. I mean, somebody put dope in my spaghetti once. That's it. I will not touch illegal drugs. I mean, I take Advil and an inhaler. That's about it. I don't want anything to do with illegal drugs. DMT, LSD, forget it. Which is amazing because I go to the VA and I will not use it. Forget it. Don't even send it to me.
Okay, well, that's, you know, that's admirable and that's a good thing.
All I can say is if these aliens are real and if the Draconians are real, the tailed Draconians, the non-tailed Draconians, their technology is limited because they think in a hive mentality.
Yep.
And they're going to be destroyed. They're not going to advance themselves. And if the Nordics and the Pleiadians and the Orions are real and all the other Earthlings who left this planet during the Atlantis time, then God help the poor Draconians because they're in this plane and they're in the astral plane and they're in the galactic plane. And this time the orders are coming from the celestial plane to destroy these people. Okay. And I wouldn't want to be in their shoes because they're going to be destroyed. They're little gray slaves and the draconians. And if there are the draconians with the wings, they're going to be destroyed as well. And the cat people who run all this, they're toast, man. And I don't know what the cat people are, but I've been told that they're behind the draconians. And I think there's going to be some hell to pay. And I think it begins now. The celestial kingdom needed a reason to destroy them, and they now have a reason. And if the galactic plane doesn't do it, the celestial plane will lower the boom on the galactic plane. So I think the draconians are in big trouble. And I heard that the U.S. was begging China for more time, and China said no more. It's over. No one will buy a treasury bills. The Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve System, has $56.5 billion in assets, balanced against 4.5 trillion U.S. Treasury notes. That's 72 to 1. They've historically been at 22 to 1. They're all coming down. And I told them this quite a while ago.
Well, I mean, it's all over the news, so sooner or later it'll probably happen.
It'll happen
in some form or fashion. It's interesting. I mean, the bottom line is that you can't just disappear these various races off the planet. The challenge is to actually try to work this thing out in a somewhat of a balanced fashion. Otherwise, I think the reality is that we're actually going to separate, and we're going to have a downward shifting planet, and another group that goes the opposite direction.
Well, the planet's supposed to be vibrating. It was at 8 hertz, and now it's at 12 hertz. Everything's speeding up. The sun is going nuts. The planets are heating up. There's ice polar caps on Mercury now. There's ice caps on Mercury. I had no idea. The United Nations is talking about this. The Lucifer Trust is tied into Lockheed Martin, which runs Space Command. And on the last full-day seminar, the head of Space Command said, everything we did with the Hadron Collider failed. 35 years of science out the window. We took a wrong turn. He says, and we can't complete our starship till we figure it out. And I thought, what? We're building a starship? Who is this dude? Well, he's the head of Space Command. I had no idea we were building the USS Enterprise, capable of up and down movement.
No, look, it's been built. I mean, this is like disinfo. You think anything they say in public is true?
I don't know. All I know is I'm like, who are you? What are you saying? And we finally have reached these people because in the last United Nations conference, there were 6 people who completed the conference. And I got to watch it. And 5 of them said, oh my God, we've gone too far with Lucifer. We're looking at economic and ecological collapse and World War III. And they all said, we think we've gone too far. And the 6th one was a psychiatrist. No, he just walked in. He says, oh, there's no such thing as a conspiracy, and walked out. He was, United States Code 2, Section 286. United States Corporation. Is that United States Code or conspiracy? Come on, it's code. I asked the guy that today. Well, is the United States Code 2 a conspiracy, or is it a code? Well, I don't know. Okay, next moron.
Okay, why don't you talk a little bit about the ley lines and the stargates? And I noticed that on
fascinating.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's take Machu Picchu. Okay, all stargates are opened with 7 sounds. Kind of like I watched some of the series called Stargate. The stargates are opened with 7 sounds, and if you have the 7 sounds embedded in the gold and put the key in the hole for the Stargate will open. So if you go up and you lay hands on a Stargate, I laid hands on a picture of a Stargate, and I got the tone, music, which would open the Stargate. I'm like, cool. So the Stargates are all rebuilt from what I've been told. The ley lines, and this is fascinating because they've said this over and over again. The United Nations has 450 people listening to their broadcasts up until I started broadcasting. Said, please go there, listen, and then pray against it. But I won't be disrespectful when I report about what they say. And they want us to pray against them. They say they do. But they said the 450 people that they have listening have created they have these triangular groups in the UN where you meditate with 2 other people. And they said that has created a triangular ley line over planet Earth. Now, when I started asking people to listen, and then you tell me what you think, because you think this is garbage, you go listen to it. You know, I'm not the only one that can listen to their main broadcast.
Sure.
I just did some internal broadcasts, and I said, you figure it out. So they said they'd gotten a huge increase in number of people listening to their broadcasts. And some people choose Lucifer, and some people choose to pray against him. I said it's their choice. Just you go with me. And apparently, on what does it mean, one of the ley lines blew in a beach. So the UN said these ley lines are getting really powerful. And then I remember last year, the head of Lockheed Martin Space Command, the vice president of Lockheed Martin, says, you know, we've just discovered something. We've discovered these ley lines in a higher harmonic surrounding planet Earth. And he's saying, we have equipment now that can measure these ley lines. This was a year and a half ago. And I'm thinking, so Lockheed Martin is verifying the ley lines. And the UN said when we went up to 2,500 or 3,000 people listening to them, the 3,000 people are using their minds to create these groups of triangles which create the ley lines over our heads. And I'm like, wow, if 450 people can create the ley lines, imagine what 20,000 people praying against the destruction of America can do. Our mind is like a laser, a focus.
That's
we
right.
may be able to stop this madness yet.
Absolutely. You also
So
talked
that's
about...
the significance of the ley lines.
Go ahead. What?
That's the significance of the ley lines. Our minds actually create the ley lines, and then if
Well, there's
450
also,
people can do
I
it,
mean, you know, there is some point in part because the United Nations, from what I understand from Captain Mark Richards, the ley lines are actually, and what's really going on in the United Nations is that they've been dealing with various ET races for a very long time and negotiating with them. And so if they're creating triangular ley lines around the planet, they may be creating mini vortexes to allow certain craft from certain races to get inside.
Well, they said, what does it mean to add a very interesting article? They said that the Nordic race was creating miniature wormholes and throwing their spacecraft into Texas. And the way they do that, I look at these things and I look at them and then suddenly I know how they're made. They take a particular frequency that's higher than ours and they spin it in either a clockwise or a counterclockwise direction. In this case, if you're looking into it, theirs was spun in the clockwise direction. They use an enormous amount of power and then they can plug a small wormhole through. And then they can get through any ley line. But the ley line may be trying to block their own destruction. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it can probably work both ways, but in essence, because you get 3 or more people together and you're creating a triangular or a spiral vortex, you know,
Cool.
then it's a matter of spin, and it's a matter of which way it spins and what they're really doing. And you're talking about a grid, a kind of a grid.
Correct.
You know, and all I'm saying is you know, it may sound like a positive. I'm just saying, and this is just the way my mind works, but it may sound like a positive thing, but I would just be careful with the whole concept of it.
No, this is from Lucifer. Nothing is positive from Lucifer. Lucifer wants us dead. He is at war with life itself.
Mm-hmm.
And he was thrown out of heaven, this little punk, and he was always a punk. This punk Lucifer, and now when he came to earth, I guess he was called Satan. There was a little clarification on that. He hates life. He wants to destroy life. He will do everything in his power to destroy life. And these guys say at the UN, they say, the way we work is if we want, and they're wired backwards, if we want to understand love, we create hate. If we want to understand peace, we create war.
Sure, it's the
And
union of opposites.
You were thrown out because you think backwards.
No, not really, because, you know, if you're always working with the polarities, you're not really, in other words, you're just kind of working with them instead of actually really creating something new.
Okay.
Right?
Well, you know, I got thrown into this mess. I don't understand a lot that's out there.
Well, you're very astute. There's no doubt about it. Listen,
We'll
you
get it
also
held
have
down.
you've used some wonderful healing remedies that we've been going for a while here. I want to make sure that you get a chance to give people advice on mind control, safeguarding themselves against the electronic, the cytronic attacks, as well as various remedies, because cures for cancer, etc. So, can you talk about some of the the natural healing that you are involved in and that you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Way back when, in 1989, I was always undergraduate for every class except one. I missed undergraduate at one point. But so I got to talk to some really interesting people because I really got into whatever I did. I didn't drink, I didn't party, so I studied because I wanted to learn about nuclear, biological, and chemical stuff. It was fascinating because I knew it had to do with dirt, but it was just another field. And so I talked to the guy from Hiroshima in 1989 in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and he said he was at Hiroshima as a private, and they would feed people seaweed, and either they would heal in the hospitals, and the cancers would go away, and they would actually heal. I said, so you went out into the river at Hiroshima and you picked the seaweed and you ate it? He says, yeah. I said, you ate the radioactive stuff? He says, yeah, we didn't know what radioactivity was, but we were just learning. So I'm staying in Chernobyl, Kiev. It's 50 miles south of Chernobyl. Chernobyl, the river runs through Kiev. And he said, and Vladimir Tchaikovsky, the guy I was staying with, he said, all the government workers were fed seaweed soup for all the civilian workers. I said, you worked at Chernobyl? He says, yeah, we shoveled radioactive charcoal into the river. We put it in wheelbarrows and dump it in the river or in the trucks. And I said, well, all the government workers took potassium iodide, and Life magazine had the last one die in August of 1988. And he says, yeah, but we all had seaweed soup. None of us got sick. So I said, the potassium iodide killed the government workers, but the civilian workers lived. He says, yeah, none of us got sick. I know all of them. We all lived. Because he was retired, and so he volunteered, him and his wife. And so I met my first wife died of cancer. But I met my second wife, and she had colon cancer, a tumor in her stomach. She had melanoma, and her blood pressure was over 200. And it called me stupid for dating, right? So her mom just died of cancer. So we didn't know what to do. She refused to eat seaweed. So I took a Centrum Silver vitamin, and I took a REI, or U.S. Army iodine water purification tablet, and I put it in her coffee Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in 6 months, her melanoma had dissolved, her warts were falling off, and her colon cancer was gone, and the tumor in her stomach we could no longer feel. And I said, oh my God. So then she started eating seaweed, and she got a lot better. And we started eating EDTA, and this is all in the video, you don't have to write this down. And her blood pressure came down to 150 over 130. And so then we found Immucyst, and it's in the video, The Cure for Cancer. I sell nothing. I don't even sell this book. Cures medical experts don't want you to know. I don't even sell it. A friend of mine wrote a book about me. It's on Amazon. But so she was cured of cancer. Her blood pressure came down. Her vision stabilized. My vision stabilized. I dropped 80 pounds. She dropped 25 pounds. And we looked at each other. One day I said, I'm going to do a video. So I did a video. And my computer went down again. So I had a friend put it on his website. Well, about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, I said, that's it. I'm putting out the cure for cancer, the cure for diabetes, all this stuff. So I just started doing videos. We did Be Ready, which is, hey, be ready for what's coming. Just be ready. We did the cure for cancer. We did the cure for diabetes. We fed 7 veterans, including myself, non-genetically modified food. We eat spelt bread. We don't eat the regular bread because regular bread has no flavors. We eat the spelt bread, which was the original wheat. We don't eat canola oil because that makes cattle sick. Why would you eat canola oil if it makes a cow sick? And I ate Immucyst for 2 years, and I stopped Immucyst, and we did my blood levels. And my insulin levels are not only normal, they're high. So we changed the structure of butter. And then we used an ion cleanse, which is the little coil thing we got for $120 on eBay. And then we started eating polygon precipitatum. And we think, according to some guy in the CIA, we think we've extended human life by 7 times. We don't think we've just cured cancer. We think, as in the days of Noah, I think we've extended the human life. If you start these procedures as a child, we think we've extended the human life to 700 years.
Okay, and the procedures are what? In a video?
The procedures are, and the videos are all free. They're not copy protected, so pull them and put them onto your computer as fast as possible before they pull them. The cure for cancer is a video. The cure for diabetes, you have to put the cure for diabetes, the cure for Alzheimer's. How to reverse stroke damage. Another one is be ready, because they're going to try to throw everything at us, so be ready. I do a lot of political stuff too, but because of the political stuff, because I know what's going to happen, they allow me to post this other stuff, because if they pull those videos, I'm going to clam up. And I don't get paid for these. I've never been paid a dime. They're supposed to pay me, and I want to give the money to Patch Adams, but Google's not going to pay. Yeah, YouTube's not going to pay. So I don't care. The videos are intended to wake you up and make you healthy. Okay, now, this is really important, Carrie. Mind control weapons.
Okay.
Everything is right. It's been slowed down. We showed on a video patents for U.S. mind control devices. Now, when I started working for Will Wilson, he told me a lot of things. And one of the things he talked about was mind control weapons. And I rolled my eyes in the back of my head and I said, yeah, sure. And I'm sure that probably 90% of the public listening to this says, yeah, gather weapons, mind control, yeah, until they see the patents. And then it's like, oh my God, the U.S. patented mind control weapons. This stuff must be real because somebody's spending money to patent these things.
Sure.
So what they do is each DNA has a particular frequency. And for about a year, they spray round tube, and triangular computer chips that are chipped with gold that attach themselves on the end of your DNA. So your frequencies increase. So when you walk into Walmart, it reads the computer chips in your clothes. It reads your iris patterns. It actually reads your fingerprints. And it also reads your DNA frequency. My brother can talk to you about this. Now, if you're getting attacked with scalar weapons, you have to have lots of magnets around. Because when you put a magnet on, your DNA frequency changes ever so slightly. You put on 2, it changes more. You put it in your left hand, it's one frequency. You put it in your right hand, it's another frequency. I have a radionics machine. This I understand. So if you keep a magnetic bracelet around the steering wheel of your car, if you put a magnet in your pocket and take it out, put 2 in your pocket, take it out, you will confuse the people who won the mind control warfare. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I did how to clean up Fukushima. Because we know that when lightning strikes radiation, 10% of the radiation is gone. So 15 strikes on Fukushima, 4 million pounds of radioactive material neutralized. We know that. I felt sick for 2 days, so I put 6 magnets in my back left pocket. As long as I wore the magnets, I wasn't sick. Does that help any?
Yes, absolutely, and great stuff. I've got some people that are listening live, and they're asking questions in the chat. So I want to give them a chance to ask you some questions. I also want to let.
I love questions.
Okay, very good. So we've got about. We're going to keep you for another 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to. Jimmy Church is asking me to call into his radio show tonight at 9 o'clock. So we have to close down sometime before that so that I can congratulate him on his 300th radio show.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
And so I'm happy to do that. And by the way, for those listening, I am going to be on Jimmy Church next week, and I'll turn him on to you, Dr. Mount, because obviously I think you're a great guest, and I think it'd be lovely for you guys to chat as well. I think that would be a lot of fun for you. It's too bad you haven't written a book, or if you have, you haven't sold. You're not selling it, because you could probably make some money.
Well, I went to an attorney and I said, I'm going to put out the cure for cancer. And he said, you have all these diplomatic passports. Yeah. He said, if you make money on it, they have the right to arrest you. I said, fine, I'll do it for free. I said, this is America. These are my people. I'm going to give them a cure for cancer. Damn the, and I wrote Patch Adams. I said, damn the FDA, full speed ahead. He sent me a postcard back. Right on, Bill. So I've been cussed out. I've been cussed out by the American Cancer Society. I've been yelled at by the American Medical Association on email, documented, printed out. I couldn't believe the American Cancer Society cussed me out. So I'm going to publish a cure for cancer. And they started swearing all over the email.
Yeah, well, they're making some big money out of their keeping people sick. So we're well aware of that.
Can you imagine? No more diabetes, no more cancer, no more Alzheimer's.
Yep.
No more heart attacks.
That's right.
Oh my God. What are people going to die of?
Okay, so now, look, I'm going to ask you some of these questions. Do you mind?
No.
Okay. And you're doing a great job, so thank you. Let's see.
Oh, thank you. When you love people, it goes easy.
What race do you think may be allied with the Chinese? Someone is asking.
I have no idea what the alien boogeymen are doing. But I do know that there's a lot of races who don't want to see planet Earth go up in a ball of flames. And we're about there now, and there's some people out there saying, I don't think so. And they're going to contain these Rothschilds. They didn't have the legal right to. But when I filed the 5444E and the 211 treasury forms, and when I filed the Russian bond, which China's in charge of, but Russia has to pay, and the Deutsche Bank also refused it, what it did is the entire financial system Rothschilds had, and it gave a legal right to come in and destroy it and change it. I don't ever expect to be paid from any of that money, but I do expect, when I petition God, that they will be held to pay by the Rothschilds for it.
Okay.
So I don't know what really.
Someone else wants to know where you get intel about off-worlders like cat people and reptilians.
People will come to me. I was at Costco the other day, and this whole family came to me. Oh my God, you're from God. You're from God. Talk to me. You're glowing. Well, that happens a few times, more than once. But people will actually come to me, and they'll just start talking to me about this. I'm supposed to tell you this. Blah, 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 blah. And then I'll look it up on Biblioteca page. Like, what are they talking about? And oh my God, there it is in writing. So I have to verify everything by 2 or more sources. My sources that I used to have, I burned. Now I just go to the internet when someone comes up and starts talking to me. Because they'll tell me things like, you glow, you're from God. I'm like, I'm sitting in the Civil War Association at Plains 2 years ago, and people came up to me, and they said I was glowing all night. Because I'd been on my knees earlier saying, what do I do now, God? So yeah, it's kind of scary. It makes it really hard to reenact, too. After you glow a couple of times.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe they fed me something. Maybe they fed me something radioactive. But I get on my knees a lot. I ask for protection, and sometimes I glow, and it's really embarrassing.
I think there's a lot of people out here glowing. But I appreciate that you're doing so as well. Okay, it says that someone here wants to know what do you do for diabetes?
Okay, that's easy. First of all, quit eating bread because it kills your pancreas. Secondly, stop eating canola oil because it kills your liver. Third thing, stop eating genetically modified soybean oil. What we do is we went to spelt bread because it has flavor, and we went to non-canola oil, or olive oil, stuff like that. And then we eat immune-assisted seaweed. And then we also use Citricare to kill the mold in our body. And that's kind of it. The seaweed. Oh, and the seaweed is really high in everything but vitamin C and D. The aluminum dust in the air prevents your body from making vitamin D. We showed the presidential executive order to put aluminum dust in all jet fuel. So I take a seaweed, and then I actually have some D and C supplement me a couple times a week. Okay. And my pancreas regrew, and so did 6 other veterans. One of them was treated for a bacteria that they thought was diabetes, and they had to cut a leg off, and finally we got a hold of him, And they're not going to cut any more parts of his body off. He's fine. His fingers are pink now. His toes are pink. Well, the toes on the one leg are pink. So.
Okay, and let's see. Someone's saying you actually have 3 video channels, correct? Because what I do is I have the broadcast on a channel where people are watching it on my other computer, so I can make sure that we really are live. Okay, so we're back on, and let me double check with people that they can hear us. Okay, so it looks like we're back. Okay, so you said the wrong words.
I don't remember the question, but I was at the Beyond Oil Conference in 2009 as a reporter, and we helped build an electric car because I'm really into solar, and I got solar on my house while I worked. And so I turned around and said, "Can we cut the BS?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "You handcuffed me, and the United States started a war with Russia and China, and we're losing." Kind of looked at the ground and he said, "Yeah, that's right." And we talked for about 5 minutes, and he walked away, and I thought, and I met this guy named, right after that, the guy from America's Third Party. He was actually pretty smart. Came up to me and introduced himself, and I thought, yeah, tall, thin, gray suit, okay, either an FBI or CIA. So we became friends. And my websites kept going down in the beginning. And then after you stop 30 or 40 presidential assassinations and you got the newspaper articles to verify it, so on and so forth, they begin to say, hey, maybe this guy's right on because he's always right. Well, like I said, I can't even find my own glasses. So who's ever feeding me this information is feeding it to me. But I wasn't able to do a YouTube channel. And so he did a YouTube channel, and then I brought up my own YouTube channel. But if there's a third one, somebody's creating that one. And the Mason put out a letter that said I got 35 wives, 15,000 children. These are Masons in London, and I live in 8 countries. And I'm like, okay, I want to meet all these 15 wives. And they said 15,000 children. I'm like, yeah, okay. I wouldn't have time for anything else. This was an official statement after I asked them. I said, one of the titles you gave me was the Mantle Fiat. And that was supposed to be the direct representative to Christ of the Russian Church. The Masons on page 764 of Albert Pike's book, I think it's 764, say that they're required to follow the Mantle Fiat or die. That's in Albert Pike's book. So I wrote to guys in London and Paris and Scotland and all over. I said, I don't know what my role is. This head of the Russian Church gave me all the blessings from all of the kings of Malta. He laid hands on me and did this. He made me a bishop, and he made me the Mantle Fiat. Now, I said, you guys have all the books on this. All I have is Albert Pike's book. What does it mean? And they just proceeded to trash me. So I wrote them a letter back and said, that was bad. Your system's going to collapse. Well, their system is collapsing. And it's going to continue to collapse. They were very disrespectful. I didn't know what my role was, Carrie. I mean, they gave me all this stuff. What do you do with it? I didn't even know what it was. It took me a year to translate to Russian. Every time I took this to a Russian person I know, they'd hand it back to me and turn white and say, go.
Oh, yeah.
I believe
it.
What
Okay.
are they telling me? So that's why I posted it on the internet. I mean, go look at it. I don't know what. I don't read Russian. But I finally got some translators to tell me what it was, and then when I started asking questions about it, they were like, just very disrespectful. I mean, they swore at me, told me I was nuts, and I said, well, look at the passports. So I posted it on the net. Here it is. So they've been taking the time to trash me, so the whole system that they run in London is coming to an end. Because according to their own war, their system has to crash now. They've killed themselves. That's what their own literature says.
Okay.
I don't know if you got you know what those things mean. I have no idea. Maybe
I'll tell you. I'll play ball with you on that one. I actually, my information is that they're going to make it look that way. Right? They're retreating. Come on, you must have read The Art of War. There are games that they play, right? So they retreat at the right moment. They go underground during the time when there are a lot of things that have been set in motion that are going to be, wreaking havoc. It's like setting things in motion.
They are the chief Masons. If you're 33rd or above, or you're 31st and above, you're part of a satanic cult. You must follow the mantle field. If you do not, it's death. You can go underground 400 levels. It's still death. It's their own lore. It's what they swore to. It's a loyalty oath these Masons took when they became a Mason. And if they don't obey their own loyalty, then Lucifer, they've sworn this loyalty to Lucifer. I have the right to petition God to destroy them, and I did. So their system is coming to an end, and there's apparently an 8-year cycle. And I started this in probably, I would say, the 2nd of January is when 2007 is when I did the notice of withdrawal. So add 8 years to that, to January 2015, it's all coming to an end. And I figured out I lost my money sometime in June of 2007. So June of this year is when poodly hit the fan.
Okay, more questions.
An 8-year cycle, and I petitioned whoever God is, whoever's giving me this information, to kick their butts, and guess what? Their system is coming down. And something out there, I know you got to go before 9, something out there is feeding this information, whether it's God or whatever. I've never seen an angel, never seen an alien, and if I do see an angel, probably going after it with a baseball bat for getting me in this mess. I have no desire to do this, Carrie. I wanted to study beavers. I like swimming in ponds with beavers. They're cool. And they're just cool little animals.
Okay. Let me ask you some more of these questions. Okay, so someone wants to know if you have any contact with the Ashtar command.
The Ashtar? Oh, that's supposed to be some command in the galactic. I remember. And I contacted the guy who's supposed to be with the Ashtar command, and he never contacted me back. So I contacted him again, nothing. I contacted him again, nothing. Because the Ashtar command said there'd be all these things happening, and every time they say something's going to be happening, just like everybody else, it doesn't happen, and then they update. And so it says in Deuteronomy, if somebody says something's going to happen and it doesn't, ignore them.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Okay,
the Ashtar command says this. If they're really that powerful, why don't they just make it happen?
You're right.
Why aren't they man enough to stand right here in this room with me if there's such a powerful alien boogeyman and say, okay, you've done all this, stopped over 100 nuclear weapons, or 100 times the nuclear weapons, but why aren't they man enough to come here and say, all right, you've done all this whiz-bang stuff, maybe we're here to help you? Because they're just out there playing their little games out there. I don't think they're man enough to come down and see me. Not that I'm anything important, but where the hell are they? We're ripping this planet apart. Fukushima has 4 million pounds of radioactivity. Why don't they hit Fukushima with 15 lightning strikes and neutralize it? They're so powerful, tall base, whoever they are, they an underground lightning strike to make Fukushima happen. It was a blue flash, underground lightning strike. Why don't the other aliens hit it with 15 bolts of lightning and destroy it? I mean, where are they?
That's right. Sorry. Okay, no, absolutely. Okay, someone else wants to know, are radionics really real? Do they work? And a particular equipment that you use?
Okay, I got this from a company I think is defunct. I programmed in radionics so people would listen to me. I typed in William Mount, and there were 15,000 hits on my name. I programmed in Will Wilson, and there were 20,000 hits on his name. And I programmed in my wife, Jane Mecklenburg. There were 15,000 hits on her name. So I went home and I used this radionics machine. Let's put this to the test. Because, I'm from Missouri. I got to see it work. So I played with this thing. And 2 weeks later, we're shooting the breeze at the TV station. So I went onto the computer. I typed in William Mount. It said there were 100 million hits on my name. Now, I'm not saying there's 100 million actual hits on William Mount, but you type in William Mount, and there were 100 million hits. And I went, okay, there used to be 15,000. So I typed in Will's name, 15,000. I typed in, Will had about 30,000. I typed in James, 15,000. Keith Young, 15,000. Pat Shoup, about 20,000. I typed in mine, 100 million. I thought, wow. Now when I use the radionics machine, I get an enormous headache. Somebody's tied into my radionics machine, and when I use it, there's some feedback.
That's very
And I'll
unfortunate.
set the machine on, and 30 minutes later, I'll be 10 miles away down a Costco or something, and I'll get this enormous headache. And if my wife uses it, same thing happens now. And we go home and we turn this radionics machine off, and the headache's gone in 3 minutes. Now, somebody's doing some kind of harmonic feedback
Well,
on
absolutely. You know about Tom Bearden's work?
No.
We should look into him. He's works with scalar physics and explains it very, very well. You just look him up on the internet, Tom Bearden. He's a scientist.
He takes a piece of clay and he focuses. He's just south of here. He owned the largest marina in St. Louis, or St. Louis. I get St. Louis confused with New Orleans. And so he's a very successful guy, and he sold out before Katrina, thank God. And he said his wife took a piece of clay and put it in her hand and focused on something, and then would throw the clay away, and it would happen. So I think the radionics machine focuses our brains, and what I've been working on is writing down what I want and putting it in a piece of paper and holding it and walking around the house for a couple hours. And I don't know if it'll work or not. I'm asking for some pretty intense things.
Sure.
So I think it actually focuses our pineal gland, which if you eat, Epsom salt, it clings on to the calcium fluoride and then breaks up the calcium fluoride around your pineal gland. So it allows your pineal gland to effectively give serotonin and melatonin and so on and so forth. That's why our sleep habits are all off, because we don't have correct serotonin and melatonin because the calcium fluoride clogs our pineal gland, which is a tiny little thing. But it is your third eye.
Okay.
So by eating a little magnesium sulfate, how to open your pineal gland, oh boy, let me tell you, the churches don't like that. Oh, it's the pineal gland, it's the third eye, he's from Satan. No, God gave us a lot of gifts. And by denying the gifts, we deny God, whoever God is.
Absolutely.
So we can't deny the pineal gland, and we can't deny his gifts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. Someone wants to know about... it's really a half-written question, so I don't know what they're trying to say. I guess frequency, okay. They're talking about tapping into frequency and recording communications using everyday tech. I don't know. It's kind of like a broken thought. I can say that it does.
It's a lot of information for people, and just go to the Cure for Cancer on the internet or on YouTube, or Be Ready, and look at the other videos, and you'll see a lot of things that I talk about. I don't know how to vibrate our body into the astral plane. I don't know. I don't know anything about out-of-body experiences. And all I know about aliens is what people come up and tell me and what I read on the internet. I was asked to come down to Dales, Oregon to meet the aliens. Then I found out the guy did drugs and did out-of-body experiences to meet the aliens. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Well, it's a good way to get possessed. If you combine, it's a good way to get possessed.
Well, how do you know what's the good spirits and what's the bad spirits? I have these people.
Well, possession is going to be negative, right?
Pardon me?
I said possession is going to be negative. So if you do drugs and try to contact aliens, what you're going to get in contact with most likely are the negative side of the beings.
If I'm to speak clearly, come on, infantry, forestry, combat engineer, blow things up, play in the dirt. If I can touch it and feel it, smell it, and taste it. By the way, I couldn't smell my whole life, and I started eating Unisys. And I'm walking through the Civil War reenactment, and for the first time in my life, I smelled cow poop. I walked over to the cavalry, and I said, "You're not going to believe this." They said, "What? I can smell cow poop, and it's bad." And they were laughing. And one of the guys said, "Yeah, my father was born without a smell." I said, "Yeah, 1 in 15." And we talked about not having smell. And the poor cow, I love the cavalry. They just like to ride horses, and I do too. And it was just a funny encounter. I could smell them. One of the first things I smelled was cow manure. It stinks.
Okay. All right. Look, I'm going to have to let you go. I think that we've covered quite a gamut of things here. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about for the next, say, 5 minutes or less?
This is all I got to say. This is my country, and here I stand. And if I'm the very last person who stands for freedom, which means you own the land on which you stand, you are king. No property taxes. Nobody can come in and tell you not to build a building or not drill a well or not build a sewer system. If I'm the last one standing for freedom, and liberty, the legal definition is freedom, then that's the way it's going to be. Then I'll be the last one standing. And that's all there is to it. And if they kill me because I stand for freedom and liberty, so be it. It's in God's hands. I figure when I wake up and I'm not on this planet anymore, my job is done. But God help the people who work for Lucifer and the Rothschilds, because they didn't do what God asked them to do, and there will be hell to pay on earth probably in another month or two. That's it. And if, there's nothing else I can say. That was my motivation. This is my country, and here I am.
Okay.
I don't know how else to preserve the country except to tell everybody what the heck's going on.
Well, it's a beautiful thing that you're communicating what you're tapping into and getting information about, and I appreciate it, and I thank you.
If you figure out who God is, let me know, because whoever it is has been 100% correct on presidential assassinations, who's going to do them, when, where, why, how, and nuclear attempts at blowing up nuclear weapons. Whoever it is, they've been 100% correct on this. And that's a pretty good track record, whoever's giving me the information. I mean, the 4th of July was one when Obama went to the Pentagon. We warned him they're going to throw a tomato at him, which means he's going to be killed. Get out. And so he got out. Whoever's doing this is 100% correct. And it's wow. All I got to say is, wow, man, why didn't you use somebody like, who was wealthy and well-known? I'm just this disabled vet that you decided to do this to. This is just not right.
Well, it's great. Okay, look, I'm going to have to break this off with you guys. Thank you so much. Take care. All right?
And you take care of yourself, and remember, if you're getting attacked with electronic weapons, grab the magnets and grab them quickly. It doesn't matter what magnets, where you put them, how you put them.
Okay, and you're aware crystals also help. You recognize that, right?
Well, the crystals project information, and they also attract information.
Yes. So
I don't know anything about crystals. I know the magnets work.
All right. And, crystals can soak up, and redirect the rays, etc. So, it's all about the kind of crystal.
I learn how to work with them. I don't know that.
All right.
But you're probably 100% right on that. I just haven't gone down that road. All I know is when I feel really bad, I grab some magnets.
Okay.
And the sun is doing it. The sun is making my eyes hurt. We're having weird sunspots. And I grab magnets and I go inside that. So it's the best way to prevent yourself from getting a psychotronic attack.
Okay, lovely. Dr. William Mount, thank you so much, and we'll do this again sometime soon, okay?
Yeah, and thank you for putting up with a computer that got literally totally destroyed.
No problem. It's just what we deal with here at Camelot. So take care, everyone, and we'll be back tomorrow night, actually, with Richard Allen Miller, physicist.
And I am glad to hear your voice is absolutely doing well. I am very glad to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
More than you can imagine. So
okay.
I like to see people get better. Okay, I'll let you go. You got to call in.
And thanks for the help. Okay, you take care. Bye-bye.
You bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and we are about to go live. We're going to be talking to Dr. William Mount, and he is going to be on a landline because his computer is defunct. been under attack, I guess, too much, and so we're going to do what we can here with the situation. So thank you for listening and for tuning in with us. And I'm going to see if I can get myself on screen.
You've got lots of videos to play.
Really?
You've got the cure for cancer, the cure for diabetes, how to reverse stroke damage. Those are all on YouTube, free to the public.
Okay, these are your videos, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So...
Well, we did the Fukushima thing, and something's been coming after me ever since.
Oh, yeah?
Fukushima? Yeah, this was not something they wanted out of the bag. Pardon me?
Just say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming on. You're going to be... When we're done with this show, there will be hope in your heart once again.
Okay.
Well, it looks hopeless out there. Everybody's panicked and scared and looking around, and when we're done with this program, most of you will say, oh my God, there is hope. And it's not, the light at the end of the tunnel is not another train. There actually is hope. And
okay.
It's some great hope.
Good.
And that's what I like to do is people seem to have no hope today, Carrie, and when they realize there's a simple cure for cancer, a simple cure for diabetes, all their diseases can be cured. So, well, not cured, you just knock them back into the next century. You never really cure anything. When they realize that it's so simple, and they don't need all this medical stuff, except, if you break a leg or crack your skull or something, then doesn't that give them hope?
Okay, well, let me just say that that I'm going to read your bio, and then we can delve into all of this in some kind of order, so that it makes sense to people. And Dr. Mount is certainly a psychic. I think you would agree to that, correct?
Well, I'm something. There's something in me that's able to go out into the ether and get information that nobody else has.
All right, and just so people know, if you know people that are looking for the broadcast, please do direct them to the live stream channel. We didn't have a lot of time to move over here from YouTube, but we did our best, and so that's what's happening. And I'm trying to see.
The information I give out is not. There seem to be two camps. One is the CIA, NSA, they're all corporations, and half of the people love me and half of them hate me. And the ones that hate me don't want the information out, and the ones that love me want the information out. And so it's not surprising that you went down on YouTube.
Okay, so let me read what you wrote as a bio, and then I'm going to ask you to augment that, okay? So here we go. Dr. William Mount graduated from UC Berkeley in 1980 as a forester, spent 4 years in forestry, and the field dried up, and so he joined the Army as a private, graduated from Officer Candidate School in 1986, left the Army, and then stayed in the Army Reserve, graduated from Humboldt State with an MS in Natural Resources in 1990 after finding a cure for a tree disease. Disabled from the reserves in 1997 due to the effects of Lyme disease. He floated around for a while fighting veterans' battles, got Agent Orange recognized and got Social Security disability for reservists and National Guardsmen injured in the Gulf War.
The guy in the back with guns in a bulletproof vest. He looks like Mr. Macho who forgot to work out. Just fat. And I said, well, let's show me the letter. So I read the letter and I said, yeah, I'm ratting the judge out to you because he's in violation of the Espionage Act. He's a damn spy. And read the letter. And the U.S. Marshal read the letter. He says, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with this. I said, yeah, he's allowing the sales of military records around the world. And he said, oh my God. And I said, you just stepped on my property. That's an act of war. And he said, oh, you did say you were an ambassador. I said, yes, I did. Well, I'm trying to play this because I'm shaking in my boots. This is scary. I didn't want to do any of this. And I said, by the way, and I told him what the First Special Forces told me, And I said, when my president gets done talking to your president that you never notified him. Well, I got cussed out by his boss a year later. Apparently, Bill Kirkwood, I have to get his card out. He was the head of the U.S. Marshals. And I was sitting at Oscar's bar. I don't drink, but people in bars have mushy brains, so I don't really read much in their brains. So I could sit in the bar and have iced tea. Bill Kirkland pulled out his card, and we're talking about how he was knighted and how he's such a great U.S. Marshal. And I told him my name, and he took a shot of beer, or whiskey, took a shot of beer, and he said, you blankety, blankety, blank. I'm the one who had to notify the president. And he started cussing me out.
Wow.
And this is an Oscar on camera. And, that's how I found out he told the president. From then on, people watch my emails, evidence. So if I know something, the CIA owns AOL, I can send a message out, get a message out in less than 30 seconds when I know something, and it'll be stopped. But I remember talking to him, and anyway, back to Sean. I went down and met this guy who was starting up this country that was nothing but internet fraud. But I talked to him, and I said, if you get this passport, if you go to the Ukraine, and I said, wow, I just came from the Ukraine. I got some adopted family back there. He says, if you get this passport, he says, it's going to protect you when you fight battles for the veterans. And I said, you're right. If I go over there and open this for a month or two, stay with him for 30 or 60 days, if I come back, I can keep fighting battles for veterans with diplomatic immunity. So I called the State Department and we talked. And so, not paid, I went over there, got the passport stamped. They were dumb enough to stamp it. And I stayed there for a couple months.
Okay, you stayed where? You stayed in this Melchizedek country that Sean talks about?
I don't know what Sean talks about. I stayed with some people in the Ukraine, and we legitimized the country, which means we got somebody to stamp the passports. Because I had checked on a treaty with this fake country with Haiti, and I checked on a treaty with the Philippines, and they were both signed. So we had two treaties. All we needed to get unlimited loans from the Rothschilds and the IMF was somebody to have the passport stamp.
Okay, but isn't it called? You don't know about it then, but even though you're supposed to be its ambassador.
Well, later I went to Russia because I found out that there were some connections with Sean and some people in San Francisco and the money that disappeared that I gave Sean. And they apparently were printing up $750 million in fake bonds to sell Putin through Antonio Valadico of the Russian Church. And I had to go back to Russia. And Iran had 350 nukes. And we had to pull them out of Iran because the U.S. was planning to...
Got into politics in November of 2006 when the two senior First Special Forces came to him and told him they were being deployed to kill President Bush on the 4th of April 2007 and nuke Salt Lake City, I guess, or Salt Lake 2 days later.
Salt Lake, correct.
That's a very short bio. Can you go into some more depth?
Well, my life is in dirt. I love soil. I've been playing with soil since I was 12 years old gardening. And I wanted to find, I remember a guy named Cesar Chavez, and he was a Mexican radicalist who knew Jimmy Carter's wife real well. And everybody in the fields were dying because they were using malathion and other pesticides on tomatoes. And I used some malathion, and it said safe. And I'm 12 years old, and I'm watching the TV, and I said, these Mexicans over there are dropping dead of cancer, and they're using malathion. I'm using malathion. Hey, I may not be the smartest 12-year-old on the block, but, there's something wrong with this. I had to get a job, and I've had a job since I was 11. So I had to work and go to school, and we didn't have any food, so I went to work so I could do things like eat. And I was gardening, and I realized that there's something wrong. So I studied that for a long time and finally finished that project back in 1990, I guess. we came up with the cure for 3 diseases. It was right after I graduated. I remember looking at the wall. I had 400 books. I threw them away, and then I focused on that. But the other side was I was in the Army, and I was in the reserves progressing on that line. But it all came to an end when I was injured and disabled in 97. And I didn't know what to do. I remember walking into Patty Murray's office with Training Manual 610, the Army Herbicide Manual, and I gave it to her aide in Seattle, Muriel Gibson. She called me up 2 weeks later. She says, Bill. I said, what, Muriel? She says, Patty, because Patty Murray was a news senator. She says, Patty walked into Bill Clinton's office, and he walked it down to the Supreme Court, and Agent Armstrong's has been recognized. I said, you're kidding. She says, no. And I thought, oh, my God, they're going to kill me, right? Here I am, this disabled soldier, they're going to kill me. And the other thing I did, I was fighting a battle on Social Security, and we gave Social Security proof that the VA used 2,500 cases of contaminated needles and infected our soldiers purposely with a rash, something like jungle rot. And I used oregano oil finally to get rid of it. And the judge, and there are 3 directors of Social Security here in the Seattle area, and one of them came on my side, and we convinced the judge that I would win a case where all the veterans who came back from the Gulf infected with diseases would get disability. And when that happened, she says 150 people in Seattle got disability, and she said it went nationwide the next day. So she said that case took 100,000 deaths off the street. And I thought, wow, one guy can do something.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that one guy could actually do something. I mean, I'm just a nobody, right? You pick up the phone. I think I've talked with one senator, and that's Mr. Murkowski. And I read him the Riot Act because he said he couldn't do anything. And I said, you're a senator, and I read him the Riot Act. But, I mean, I haven't, and then...
Well, wait 1 second here. Now, you say you're an ex-Army captain, correct?
Well, if you look at Putin Dash, this one's for you, all my it's a video. All my identification is laid out, and I go through it with a camera.
Okay.
So you can actually see my ID card, all the passports.
And is that on your YouTube? Is that on your YouTube channel?
Yes, ma'am. Putin Dash, this one for you. And everything's been exposed. I said, the story's unbelievable. I got to say, it's incredible. So I'm just going to put everything out and let people decide. Here it is. You guys decide.
Okay, so why did one senator listen to you? Why do you think?
I don't know exactly what they said.
Okay, what do you mean the first Special Forces came to you? To do what?
Well, it was November 2006. I got on my knees and I said, okay, God, what's going on? I'm in court to stop the VA from selling military records around the world, which seems to be a good thing. And what do? And 2 weeks later, the first Special Forces came to an attorney and said, we're going to kill the president and put a nuke in Salt Lake so we can have another war because arms sales are flat and we're being deployed to do this. And I said, well, go tell your general. He said, the general's deploying us to do this. And I said, wait a minute, you guys are out of Fort Lewis? Yeah. Okay, we eat at the same places? Yeah. Why did you come pick me? He said, because you have the guts to fight him in court. He says, everyone else we went to didn't have the guts to stand up and do anything about it.
So what they were saying, just to get this straight, what you're saying, they were actually ratting on their higher ups and the plans?
Yeah, they were command sergeant majors of the first Special Forces. We got a big Special Forces out here. It's all fenced in. Can't even go on the property anymore. They're locked down. These guys are like total super soldier slaves. They do what their masters tell them to do.
Okay, but in this case, you're saying they come to your house, or where did they approach you?
They came to an attorney's place. And the problem is, what do? I mean, you're in court. You're a disabled vet. You have no contacts anymore. And the last set of contacts, you got fired for stealing weapons. You got a whole warehouse of stolen equipment. A whole warehouse. I mean, it got so bad I spray painted my truck blue with blue spray paint and went in there at 2 o'clock in the morning and did some dumpster diving to find some hand receipts so I could present them the next day to these guys. I mean, so I have no contacts. I burned the bridges when I busted these guys. But you don't steal on my watch. And you don't lie to me. But they came forward and they said, you got guts to stand up to these guys. So we don't want to do what we're being employed to do. Most of the military does not want to kill American citizens.
True.
That's why they have to have homeland security. That's why they have to recruit foreigners. That's why they have to bring in Russian and Chinese troops. American soldiers don't want to kill Americans. We did not enlist in the service to kill Americans because they have a 5-shot 38 revolver in a drawer. I didn't sign on to kill American citizens because they have some extra dehydrated food in their cupboards. That's not why I joined the military.
Right.
I joined the military to protect and defend the Constitution to the best of my abilities and to protect the president and those around him. Now, if that means somebody's going to shoot him, I'm going to go ballistic. And I got 2 command sergeant majors in an attorney's office. If they're saying they're being deployed to kill the president, somebody's going to pay hell for that. You don't shoot the president on my watch. You don't steal. You don't lie. And you dang sure don't blow up cities.
Okay, so what did you...
Wait.
And
your general...
Okay, what did you do?
I didn't know what to do. So I was listening to Art Bell, and he was talking to a guy named Sean David Morton, who had a president who was... Pardon me?
Yeah, I know Sean. Okay.
And they were starting this startup country. And I said, oh, my God. He said he appointed me as ambassador, so I did a notice of withdrawal in the court case. I said, I'm withdrawing this court case. And if you don't withdraw this court case by the time I walk out of this courtroom, I'm going to tell the U.S. Marshals, you're allowing the VA to sell military records around the world, and you're guilty of espionage, punishable by 20 years in jail to death. And I wrote him a letter that said that. And the Marshals came by my front door, and they came through my gate, and they said, did you write this letter? Of course, I'm scared to death. You know, I swear they pulled out this badge about 3 feet in diameter. It scared me to death. So I opened my vest, I turned around, and I said, all I have on me are my keys. So I opened my pocket. And they said, did you write this letter? And there's another. Why I got through to Murkowski, I was talking on the phone, and somehow I got a hold of him, and I guess his daughter's a senator now. And I ended up talking to him, and he's the only guy I ever talked to in politics, I guess. And I said, the Forest Service shut down forestry 1 March 1990. It was 1980. It was called the Consent Decree by the Ninth Circuit Court. You couldn't be hired by the Forest Service as Category 460 forester until the Forest Service was 60% black and female foresters. Well, until 1980, there had been 2 female forestry graduates from UC Berkeley in 100 years. There just weren't any out there. So the whole Forest Service, everything tumbled in forestry 3 months before I graduated. And I remember talking to the head of the Forest Service because Rich Wilkins and I went to engineer officer basic class at Fort Belvoir, and his dad knew the head of the Forest Service who did this, and I asked him why he did it, and he said it was a sign of the times. So I had lunch with him. He was very pleasant, but I don't like politicians. They don't tell the truth very often.
Okay, so at any rate, you did have a victory on the part of the veterans, right, and Agent Orange?
Well, and Agent Orange, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to kill me, Carrie. I mean, I'm a nobody, right? I'm not sticking out there. I'm just nothing. They could squash me, but they left me alone.
All right. And let me ask you, if your psychic ability, were you ever used in the military for your psychic ability?
No, I was in combat engineers and then in the infantry. In my final station, it was the 92nd Infantry Division, and they wanted me signed for weapons I couldn't find, and I said no, so I ended up going to the logistics officer of the U.S. Army, picked up the phone and said, what is going on? Well, it turned out that the Iran-Contra deal was the Steelicum Apartments trading drugs or weapons out of the 92nd Infantry Division, and I got stuck in there, and I wouldn't sign for the weapons that were missing. And I stood my ground. I stood my ground. Yeah, a couple shots were fired. I stood my ground. I said, no, you show me these weapons and I'll find for them. And the people involved in the tail end of the Iran-Contra, their military careers ended. They just died. They just stopped.
Okay.
And I refused to sign for, that's the only possible psychic use. And all the people who helped me got advanced and retired, and all the people who came against me, their careers came to an end.
Okay,
it's been that way my whole life. people who come against me are squashed. People who help me usually get advanced. One guy made a general before they threw him out. They have to do things. The Army has its own way of doing things. If you've been busted, they may promote you and then usher you out.
Yes, I have actually heard about that. Very interesting.
My job, I didn't want to do any. This is not on my repertoire. Hey, politician, like to lie, Skull and Bones. I was invited to Yale to join all their whiz-bang stuff in Skull and Bones. I said, God, my soul belongs to the God. How can I give it over to you? That's insane.
Okay.
You wonder why I'm psychic. When the first Special Forces came to me, I'm like in this court case because I found out that the VA doesn't remove lumps in hands because they get grant money to study cancer. So they don't cure cancer. They get money to study cancer. And I thought that if you sold military records around the world, that was a violation of the Espionage Act. In the States Code, I think it's United States Code 18, Section 793, 794, and 796. So I got involved in a court case suing the VA to stop selling military records around the world. The guy who carries the nuclear football has his grandchildren's medical records sold around the world by the VA for grant money. And I said, no. And that's why the first Special Forces came to me, because they said, you're the only one with guts to fight these bastards.